Monster Hunter Wilds arrived with a huge roar. One release it pulled in well over 1 million players on PC at once, making it one of the biggest games launches on Steam. That kind of a number made headlines and put the game in the middle of almost every gaming conversation for a few days, even few weeks. When something peaks that high, the world notices. Streamers, news sites, and players all jump in. But the story after launch looks quite different. Very quickly, the daily and weekly players' numbers fell from that giant launch peak down to the much smaller, steadier crowd. Sites that track Steam show the game went from over 1 million concurrent players in the first hours to tens of thousands or dozens of thousands later on. The drop is not unique to Wilds. Big launches often bring huge short-term attention, but the fall felt sharp because the opening surge was so dramatic. Many people read that the drop as the game, fell off, and that phrase stuck in the public conversation. Now, there are a few clear reasons for this. First, the launch was rough for some players, actually quite a lot of them. People reported serious bugs and progress blocking issues. On top of that, the performances. One bug stopped players from continuing a main story chapter until a fix arrived. Performances on some of the PCs and consoles also caused quite a frustration. Early technical problems made it bad first impressions. When players who try a game right away hit crashes or broken quests, a lot of them simply walk away and do not come back. That initial loss of trust is quite hard to undo. Second, Wilds launched in as a live service style. The game promised free title updates, events, and DLC over time. That model depends on two things: steady, meaningful new content and clear communication about what's coming next. Capcom did release roadmaps and several title updates, adding new monsters, layered weapons, photo mode improvements, and seasonal events across the months after the launch. Those updates helped keep some players interested and gave returning players something new to try. But a portion of the audience expected a faster cadence or a deeper endgame systems. And when those expectations didn't fully match what arrived, some players just lost interest. Third, design and balance choices created debate. Some hunters liked the direction Capcom took, but others criticized specific mechanics that changed how combat or progression felt. These debates are normal. Every big live game faces them, but they shape public perception. If influential content creator or big threads on forums say that the game is too grindy or unbalanced, that messaging reaches people who never tried the game and discourages them. In parallel, parts of the community sometimes becomes hostile in public spaces. Toxic arguments and loud complaints can scare away quieter people who do not want to join those conversations. That said, this just a saying if the game died, and I quote, is wrong. Capcom did not abandon Wilds. The studio pushed regular patches to fix bugs, to tweak balance, and to add new content. The official update pages show multiple title updates and planned patches throughout the year. Those updates included new monsters and event quests, plus quality of life improvements. For players who stayed, these updates delivered actual value. New monsters and seasonal events created moments where player count spiked again. And those spikes are exactly what the developers want from a live service roadmap. Crossover also kept Wilds in the public eye. Capcom and other big studios often use cross promotions to bring attention back to a live game, and Wilds saw this as well. There was a crossover with Final Fantasy XIV and reciprocal content that tied the two communities together for a time. Crossover did not always convert every curious player into a long-term user, but they are a smart way to remind people the game still exists, and they sometimes bring lapsed players back for a limited run. And so, why did Wilds fade from everyday headlines while it kept getting updates? Two practical reasons that I see: front-loaded hype and the damaged first impressions. Big launches get a flood of attention from pre-orders, free trials, streamers, and coverages. That attention sits on the first days and weeks. Sustaining it requires a long-term plan that players can trust. When early bugs or confusion design choices breaks that trust, patches can help, but they don't erase the memory of a bad start. Rebuilding trust takes time and consistency. Visible wins that show that the developers listened. Now, what does this mean for the players thinking about returning? Jumping in now or maybe writing the whole game off? If you like Wilds at launch, the post-launch updates likely improve the experience in meaningful ways. New monsters, events, and fixes made the late game and end game more interesting for many users. Check most of the recent patch notes before, of course, you jump back in, and obviously they will tell you whether the problems that bothered you have been fixed and what fresh content will be also available. If you never played it, knowing the game today is not the same as launch weekend. It's more polished, and for some players it's cheaper or easier to jump back after a few updates. For Capcom, the path back into the mainstream conversation is clear, but not exactly simple. They need steady, meaningful title updates that add monsters and systems players want, consistent communication about a roadmap, and visible fixes to the complaints that pushed players away. If the studio lands one or two big high-quality updates, a monster that changes how you play, a series endgame system overhaul, or a paid expansions with a strong content, the game will spike in attention again. This is exactly what we have seen with other live service titles. One great update can bring a lot of players back. Actually, this is a good point. Well, take a look at the Monster Hunter world in this case. Finally, a quick little truth, and I quote, not in the headlines, or it's not as the same saying, and I quote, dead. Many games find a steady rhythm where smaller but dedicated player base supports kind of a living game through events and updates. Wilds lives in that kind of space now. It had a massive launch, it lost a big portion of the casual crowd, and has settled into a smaller, committed audience with ongoing development support. Now, whether it grows again depends of course on Capcom's follow-through and whether the community feels the updates answers the biggest complaints. If they do, expect big spikes when new content drops, and if they don't, Wilds will likely remain a respected but quieter part of the Monster Hunter family. Well, do let me know as well, what do you think about Monster Hunter Wilds? Do you feel that it's just somehow gone too quiet? Because I have not been noticing it any sorts of marketing, nor even a public general conversation as well. It's a bit odd for such a big game and beloved title, mind you, and yet it's not getting much attention. Well, perhaps it's also possible that I'm not exactly in the same bubble. Well, nevertheless, like and subscribe. See you guys all, and have a wonderful day.